One last method for solving a quadratic equation is to complete the square. And so what complete the square does is rewrites a quadratic so that it's in a form that you can use the square root property. So before you start, you have to make sure that your coefficient of your squared term, your a, is 1. So with a is 1, add or subtract the constant term to the right side of the equals. So I'm trying to solve this quadratic, x squared plus 4x plus 1 equals 0. So I subtract 1 from both sides to get the constant term, the term with no x's, on to the right of the equals. Find half of b. So in this example, b is 4. I cut it in half and I get 2. Square the result. So step number 1, put the constant term on the other side. Step number 2, find half of b. Step number 3, square it. Step number 4, add that number to both sides. So I'm adding 4 to both sides. Remember, I had x squared plus 4x equals -1. So I'm adding 4 to both sides of that. Step number 5 is factor the left-hand side. The left-hand side should factor into x plus 1/2 b squared, okay? And then step number 6 is to use the square root property. So take the square root of both sides, you get plus or minus, and then solve for x. Okay, so with a equals 1, put the constant term on one side, find half of b, square it, add it to both sides, factor the left-hand side, and then use the square root property. So let's solve this quadratic equation by completing the square. So step number 1, put the constant term, -13, on the other side. So x squared minus 6x equals 13. Okay, in this example, b is -6. Half of b is 1/2 of -6, which is -3. Squared, -3 squared is 9. So what I'm going to do is add 9 to both sides. So I have x squared minus 6x plus 9. 13 plus 9 makes 22. Okay, now I'm going to factor the left-hand side. When I factor the left-hand side, it should look like the left-hand side should factor into x plus b squared, x plus 1/2 b, excuse me, plus 1/2 b. Remember, 1/2 b was -3, so x minus 3 squared. Now I use the square root property. I take the square root of both sides. I get x minus 3 is plus or minus square root 22. I'm trying to solve for x, so add 3 to both sides. And I get x equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 22. So my solution set looks like 3 plus the square root of 22, and 3 minus the square root of 22.